In this episode, we'll talk about the most important person you need to set boundaries with if you have ADHD and how to do that. If you have ADHD or you think you might, be sure to listen. Hi, I'm Jen Barnes, and you're about to experience how to ditch the old ways of doing things, embrace your neurodivergence, learn tips and tricks to function optimally, and love yourself, neurodivergence and all. Welcome to the Self-Loved Woman podcast. Hey, it's Jen. So I'm excited to talk about this today. We're going to talk about boundaries and ADHD. And a lot of times we talk about boundaries with people outside ourselves and saying no and all that kind of stuff. But there's one person that's the most important person for you to set boundaries with. And that person is yourself. Because the thing is, with ADHD, a lot of times we just keep doing whatever our brain says to do, right? And so a lot of times when we do that, we wind up cleaning out our cupboards when we're just trying to get ready to go to work in the morning, right? And so I want to talk a bit about setting boundaries with ourselves. First of all, we come by this honestly. Part of this is accepting that time blindness is real, right? That for sure, there are times when we're like, oh, I totally have time to just sweep the stairs quick. Or, oh yeah, no problem. I can fix the door in my bedroom while I'm working out. It'll just take a couple minutes. And it doesn't. But that's not how our ADHD brains work. We tend to be impulsive, and we also are not good judges of time and how long things will take. And so one of the things that I find has really helped me, but also helped my clients who use it, is to really work on setting those boundaries with ourselves. But the first step of which is accepting the different pieces of how our ADHD shows up for us. So for me, it shows up with time blindness, impulsivity, that's a big thing, and wanting to please other people, right? I mean, most women, I think, grew up learning to be people pleasers. That's how our society is. And at the same time, I feel like it was particularly important given my ADHD, because as long as I was pleasing people and making them happy, they would give me a little more grace around my ADHD symptoms, which I mostly was masking. But then when it would pop up, they'd be annoyed, but they'd be maybe a little kinder because I was doing all these great things for them and stuff like that, right? Which I wasn't doing intentionally to manipulate anyone, but it was just kind of subconsciously as a kid. It's kind of how I figured it out. And so whatever it is for you that makes it hard for you to get things done and be on time or not have a million things on your plate, it's important that you really radically accept that, you know what, this is part of my ADHD. This is just how my brain works. It doesn't mean there's nothing we can do about it, and we'll get to that in a minute. But to really radically accept that, you know what, it's out of my control that my brain works this way. And so rather than shaming ourselves or oh, that was dumb, or oh, I should have known better, or anything like that, if we start with radical acceptance that, you know what, this is a part of what it is to live in my body with my brain. And there's ways I can learn to work with it, but it's going to take effort, beyond effort that neurotypical people or people without ADHD have. And to hold ourselves with compassion around that, because it's real. Right? It's really real. Another thing we need to do is honestly accept that we can't do everything. And that especially that we can't do everything shiny. We have this jar of energy every day. I know a lot of neurodivergent folks talk about spoons, right? So you have so many spoons in a day, or you have so much energy in this jar of energy each day. And with ADHD, it's super hard to want to do so much more. But the thing is we can't. And when we try, we're grossly ineffective, really unproductive, and actually end up burning out and exhausting ourselves. And so one of the things we can work on is, well, again, radically accepting, you know what? The reality is I can't do everything. So I'm going to have to pick and choose some things. Now, I want to say with ADHD, sometimes it can be hard to make that decision because we love novelty. So we don't want to tie ourselves down with one thing. And so I'm not talking about only doing one thing for the rest of your life, but maybe for this year or this month or this period of your life, you want to identify, or you could identify, your top 3 priorities. Like, what are the things you want to focus on right now? And one of the ways I like to do that is starting with like, what are my values? There's plenty of ways that we can figure out what our top 3 values are. I have a favorite that I share with my clients and in my programs. But the important thing is that we find our top 3 values and that everything comes from there. This doesn't mean these values are fixed for the rest of our lives and there's no change or excitement or novelty. But maybe for a time, we identify our top 3 values and then our priorities can flow from there. Then that can help us decide, like, is this something I really want to do? Is this something that needs to be a priority right now? And start to ask ourselves that question. And then it can be, I don't want to say simple. It's simple, not easy, right? It can be as simple as when we're getting ready in the morning, we're like, ooh, I just read the book Spare and I want to find a way to look up Prince Harry and send him a message like, way to go speaking truth to bullshit, and way to set boundaries with a dysfunctional family. And when they didn't listen to you, way to build your moat and be selective about how often you let them in. And that's great. Like, I think that would be lovely to send to him, especially because he's had so many people just rake him through the coals. And yet, that's not a priority for me. When I look at what my main values are in life, that is not one of them. It's not my job to take care of Prince Harry, nor does he probably really need me to. But that's the way our ADHD works, right? And so if we can, when something comes up, say like, is this a priority? Does this align with our values? And then say, you know what? That's not a priority. This is my priority right now. And I find that when I'm getting ready in the morning, what I'll do is these things come up in my brain. I mean, literally, I thought about Prince Harry this morning because I just finished the book last night. And I was like, that is not a priority right now. Your priority is working out, getting your coffee, and doing your podcast. That is not a priority. And then it would come up again. Oh, but maybe it would be nice to find him on Instagram. No, that is not a priority. It's okay that I want to, but my priority is this. So that's a really important first step in helping us get ourselves focused and setting that boundary with ourselves. So I've shared a couple strategies for working with setting boundaries with ourselves inside of our ADHD. And I want to talk about one of the most important kind of scripts for setting boundaries when you have ADHD, both inside of ourselves, but also with other people. And it's probably not like, oh, I've never heard that before. But I think what's profound is that this is like a key one for those of us with ADHD. And what it is when someone asks us to do something, or even when our brain is like, ooh, I should do that. It's shiny and seems nice. We can say to that other person, or maybe even to our brain, you know what? Let me check my schedule, or let me check into that. Let me check in and I'll get back to you. And this can work whether we're like clothes shopping. When I'm not great at clothes shopping. Oftentimes I need my sister, but when I lived far away, not by my sister, I couldn't ask her to go with me. And so I would have like the salespeople at the store help me pick out outfits, which is kind of fun for some of them. I think it's like playing dress up, like dressing up like a Barbie or something. Not that I look like a Barbie, but it's like dressing up a doll, right? And so I think it's fun for them, but then they get excited and they're like, ooh, let's take all these to the register. And so early on, I would end up just buying all of it, even if it was outside my budget, because I was like, okay, I don't want them to be mad at me. And it's all so shiny and nice. And then I'd get home and go, I just spent all that money. I didn't need like 5 outfits. I just needed a pair of pants and maybe a top or 2. And so in that situation, what can be helpful is saying, hey, you know what? I love all these choices. I'm going to put them on hold and I'm going to like walk around a little bit, think about it, and I'll come back and I'll get some of these things. Because that's a way that we're not saying no. We're saying, let me think about it and get back to you. Not like the icky way our parents did when they knew they were going to say no, right? Like, we'll see. Like, not like that, but more of a just, you know what? I need to really think about this. And then going and thinking about it and coming back and being selective with what aligns with our values. Like in this situation, will I actually wear this? Like sometimes I buy clothes that I love, like skirts and stuff. I don't wear skirts. I buy them. I used to. I don't buy them anymore. But it's like, okay, why am I even buying this? So Creating that space with another person and inside ourselves can help slow down the impulsivity and help us recognize like, oh, I'm trying to people please, but my value is this. Like, first of all, even if people pleasing was authentic and worked to form good relationships, this person at the mall is not someone I need to do that with. And then we can get that perspective and go back and make our choice. This works in all kinds of situations, whether someone's asking you for a coffee date that when you think about it, it's not really someone who's a priority to get together with. Not that they're not an important human, but just maybe in your life right now, that's not what you have space for. Or maybe it's a task or going to a party or bringing a certain dish to a potluck. Whatever it is, if we can say, you know what, let me check what's on my plate, or let me check in, or let me check my schedule and get back to you, that creates space for us to reflect with our values, our priorities, what else is on our plate, and quite frankly, if we even want to do it, because we get to have a choice. One last thing I'll say, and I know I said that was the last thing, but I have ADHD, so I speak in parentheses, right? The last thing I'll say is something that makes this really hard for us is our sensitivity to rejection. And so some of it is recognizing that people might be mad when we tell them no. We might even have parts inside of ourselves that are mad when we say no or get anxious. Like when I don't sweep the basement stairs, which is a thing for me, apparently. I talk about it a lot. It gets cat hair and cat litter on it. And it's just, I don't know what it is about that stairway, but there's always a part of me that's like, oh my gosh, but then we're living in filth. So whether it's an internal part of us, it's not like they're that bad, by the way. So whether it's an internal part of us that, we don't want to be upset with us, or it's someone on the outside, maybe someone will stop being our friend if we say no. We get to work through that, and maybe get to is the wrong word, but that's something we can work through. It doesn't have to be that it's this easy solution. It might be simple. Like I can list out these things, but they take some work. And we can get into all kinds of things about whether it's fair or not that neurodivergent folks have to do all this stuff to function in a neurotypical world. And that's valid. Like it's not always fair. The reality is right now we do. And so if we can find some balance around that and kind of make peace with needing to work through some of these things, then when we put our energy into those things, like learning to set these boundaries, learning to deal with our fear of rejection and the hurt that can come, learning to deal with our time blindness, we can actually be more effective in the world, feel more productive, and really just love and accept ourselves more, because productivity and effectiveness isn't the only thing that defines us as a human. In fact, it's probably the last thing that should define us as a human. Yeah. So just some stuff to think about. I would love for you to comment or to share. And if you're not following yet, be sure to follow. Take care.